Hello, friends. Welcome to another Practical Pet Business. We know you've got a lot going on, a lot of pressures. Thanks for spending a few minutes with Lorin and I. Lorin, I know you and I get this question, and it's always followed with a lot of discussion because there's a lot of things to consider when making this business decision. And this business decision carries with it an element that goes far beyond just stocking inanimate objects. So let's talk about having live animals within your pet business and your store, the things to be thinking about, the concerns, the realities, where it makes sense, where it may not make sense. And you probably have a better insight on this as you have been hit with this and had to consider it even for your own stores over time.
Yes. So, uh, do you carry anything live? And what does that mean? That really is a broad expanse because I recently read a post where somebody was going to be reducing their live section of their store to only being, I think, a couple of different reptiles, some insects, some insects. Um, and I think one particular small mammal type of creature. I don't remember exactly, and I don't want to do a call out. So, and they were asking for input from other retailers. It's interesting when you're considering whether or not you're going to carry anything live, you first have to consider what does that mean to you? Are you carrying living food, which would be like insects and mice and things like that for other creatures? Or are you talking about carrying pets? What kind of pets are those? Are they birds or fish? Are they reptilians? Are they dogs or cats? Are they, whatever they are? I think the things to consider are, first of all, your philosophy on that. Do you have the space? Do you have the room? How you're going to handle the day-to-day, how you're going to handle customers with that, the interaction, the sale of um, animals to those people, your policies and procedures. But you also have to think about your particular community. Is your community looking for that? Are they going to embrace that? Will they welcome that? Are they good with that? Are you going to have to deal with stuff you don't want to deal with? Or are you just going to be filling a niche that is sorely needed? I know that when I had my store, we lost a really popular snake store in the area. They had snakes and other cold-blooded creatures like that. And it was a huge loss I had no idea. I had no idea. I know we referred people over to them, but when they were deciding to shut down due to some personal reasons, the community was just at such a loss. So you really have to think about all of those factors. And I would encourage people to go into it small to start with, and to expand as your understanding expanded and you were able to gauge community response. And also, is it a good experience for you, your staff, and people coming in? Are you having, responsible, good people taking ownership, that are coming in to get these type of creatures? What kind of a loss are you having because of lack of sell-through? Especially if you're dealing with feeder mice or insects or those kinds of things. And then the biggest part of it is that you have to adequately employee up for that. You have to have the right kind of employees to handle dealing with these kinds of living beings. What kind of training do you need? What kind of background are you looking for? What kind of knowledge? Who's going to oversee it? How are you going to manage it? Where are you going to acquire these creatures? There's a lot to consider. So it's not something that can be casually entered into because you have creatures at home that you need to feed. So, you're going to have this section in your store. That's great, but how do you manage it when you're not there? How are these creatures cared for?
Yeah, there is so much to consider within this, and I think the feeder animals is a different probably avenue and consideration than having other live animals, for me at
For
least.
sure. No, for sure.
And in part, it's there are different kinds. Like I'll just say, one of the ones that always breaks my heart is, I'll call out hamsters, because I've experienced that recently, where it was like, oh yeah, we can give you a deal on this hamster because it's been here 25 days. And I was like, that has nothing to do with why my daughter wants to, uh, get this and adopt this hamster. And I was like, and if 25 days is a short cycle for you all, I'm almost appalled that, yeah, I mean, a long cycle, where it's like, oh my gosh, this has been here 20. It just, I don't know, that one really, that one catches me because I just cannot walk into a store that has hamsters without looking and thinking like, oh my gosh, which ones are, at risk here. Um, but from the standpoint too of, I think it does really depend on your store, who you're serving, what you're serving. I've been to plenty of bird stores that are full service that have birds available. And I don't know why. Maybe I just don't know enough about it, but I actually will enjoy going in and being there and making the purchase for the family member that has birds, and I'm picking up something for them. Flip side is when I walk in to these stores that have live animals, it's one of the first things I notice. Are they taking care
The
of
smell.
of those live animals? Because that is going to directly tell me, right or wrong. I'm sure some of you out there are like, that's not fair, Rob, because of this or that. I, I'm just telling you the reality of the perception there. And that is, if the live animals aren't being taken care of, I'm pretty sure the rest of it is, being treated the same way. I'll put it that way. And so I'm probably, not going to spend a lot of time there. And if I have my, way, I'm not going back into that store, unless they're the only store in that area. Um, and I will say I have some family members who live in some unique rural areas where that is the only store for, 15, 20 miles. So you're definitely going to make that decision based on convenience. But that being said, yeah, it's, you got liability, you got responsibility, you've got social media ability, right? So on the plus side, might be something that brings people in. But you know what? The minute something is off, that is going to hit social media as well. And I see that quite often of people. I went to this store, look at this poor, So keep all of these things in mind as a business owner. I love that you called out. Do you have people, not just yourself, do you have people on your staff who can really take care of these when you're tied up elsewhere and or life has pulled you in other directions? And I will say, when I look at the exotic animals, meaning reptiles in particular, spiders, things of that nature, um, I typically find that they have that kind of staff, and those people are deep believers. They are really in it. I know we go to a couple of different ones for specific things for our reptiles, and I am always impressed at the depth of knowledge that the entirety of the staff has. So realize we as customers see that in your business. And That's what we're looking for. I don't pivot. I don't hesitate. I go to that specialty store and I will drive past 15 other pet stores to get to those because of that expertise. So if you're going to do it and you're going to have that expertise and show it off and showcase it by caring for those live animals, I'm all for that. I love that side of it. Um, it's the other side that concerns me for most of the businesses out there.
Well, and I want to call out too that, cleanliness is a really big deal because I've heard the excuse over the years of, well, the store is just going to smell when you have live animals. No, it does not have to smell. That is not keeping the store as clean as it should be. That is not how that should go. That's like, saying that, well, your grooming department's going to be filthy and smell just because you have live animals in there every day. No, no, you're supposed to be keeping it clean. It wouldn't be any different if you didn't have any live animals and dogs came into your store and peed all over it all the time and you never cleaned it up.
Right.
You have to keep their containment clean. You have to do it on a regular basis, a daily basis. You have to really manage, and that's why, in the should I carry live creatures, you have to think about that, because you have to allot for making sure that you have the ability to keep things clean. Having the smell and keeping things dirty, that just leads to unhealthy creatures, you
Well,
know?
that's the thing I wanted to call out that you were saying here too is like you're responsible for the health of that. So it's across the board. It's oh, I is the little kid that comes in, puts his hand in the cage, gets scratched.
Hmm.
Well, we didn't think anybody would put their hand in. Assume humans are going to do the dumbest things possible. Okay. So you're responsible not just for the health of that being, but also your customers.
Right.
And so, I think there's a whole slew of considerations here, positive and negative, that you have to go through. And as we've talked about this in so many different business episodes, you've really got to do your research. It should not be a snap decision. Oh, so and so down the street has brought in X, so we're going to bring in Y. So that way people still come here. That is not going to be the justification for it. I had someone who said, well, I'm going to bring in this particular aquatic side of things because I don't have it and I will be able to sell tanks and this and that and all the rest. And I was thinking to myself, wow, there is literally two other stores within 2, 3 miles of you that I would go to that's all they do and all they specialize in. You're not pulling that new customer base that you think you're going to pull.
Right.
And I said that to them, and they were like, well, we think they will. And I said, well, how many of your current customers come in and ask for those things? Well, none, but it's because we don't have it. That is not always the reason for
No,
not asking. More often than not, they would tell you, gosh, I get everything else here. Really wish I could get the stuff for my fish here, or I really wish I could get the stuff for my reptiles here. Um, that is the more specialized, especially you get, um, you will find people will drive much farther to go to those specialized stores than being trying to be everything for everybody when that's just not what are.
the
To your
two, the
point though,
two,
I do want to hit on this when you said, hey, that entity went out of business. You spurred something in me that um, I saw recently happen, and I thought, wow, this is so brilliant. Same thing happened in one of the locales that I go to and visit. They were the only reptile store in that particular area. They also had a herpetology grouping that was a part of that store. And so that went away. And I happen to know, one of the other stores in that area, and I reached out on behalf of them and said, hey, I know this isn't something you carry, but I've seen you at the meetings. Was there a reason? He's like, yeah, because I always got the stuff there. And I was like, what if I connect you just to have a conversation? And what they ended up doing was bringing in not a full section in their store, But one of the things they did do was because of the rescue group that they were involved with, was they would bring in stuff that could be rescued. And it started to build a following for them. And over that last, 12 months, they have now expanded their store, but they didn't do it right now, right here. We're going to go big, build out, but it was something that they grew into. And that's another opportunity I would just throw out is, maybe rather than we're going to do some big build out, think outside the box, talk to the folks around you, talk to those. Because listen, we also know this, and this is, a tough discussion here, but times are tough for a lot of folks. And sometimes the more niche you are, the more pressures you're under financially. So there may be things that you can partner up with and do things with that you haven't already explored, or maybe you explored it a couple of years ago. This might be the right time to have some of those discussions. But yeah, I just wanted to say I think um, you hit on some really good points there. So I love that.
Well, what I was going to say about, bringing in this, that, and the other. The two animals that I was asked repeatedly over the years to carry things for were bunnies and chickens. And every time I said no, and they were like, well, why? It would just be so much more convenient for me. And I said, because I don't know anything about bunnies or chickens.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to bring something in, well, maybe you could just stock a shelf of chicken food. I mean, you know me, Rob. It's like I have to go down 1,000 rabbit holes
Right.
before I can stock one thing for chickens because that's just not how I did things. It's like if I was going to carry it, I needed to actively be knowledgeable about it and know why I was carrying this and not 25 other things.
Right.
And the same thing with bunnies. It's like somebody was like, but we have a bunny, and this is really the only store we want to shop in. I'm like, what do you need for your bunny? And they was like, well, just stuff for bunnies. And I said, I don't even know what stuff there is for bunnies.
Right.
I've never actually even looked. And they said, well, maybe you can look into it. I was like, I'm a dog and cat person. Dogs and cats, ask me anything. That's my shtick. And I think other stores would look at that as an opportunity,
Yeah.
but because it was such a very small number of people in the relative to the sheer volume of dog and cat clients that I had, that I didn't think that made sense.
Yeah.
And I thought that it would spread me too thin and it would actually violate my credibility when it came to dogs and cats because I didn't know anything about bunnies or chickens,
Right.
and they were like, well, we just want you to, I was like, I don't work that way here.
Well, and I love this because this stuff tails into a recent episode that you and I did about having resource lists, right?
Hmm.
So it's really interesting because I know a couple of the biggest bunny and small animal rescues that are out there, and the amount of times I would refer store owners because they would
Me
call
too, to
and
that same bunny rescue.
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And what's so interesting was the opportunity it provided to that rescue was
Yes,
they became a place to go buy those things. And I love, and you and I have talked about this before. You had 12 research assistants working with you daily in the store. Um,
my dogs. Hmm.
yes, that's the same thing at this place. And I will just tell you, it didn't just help those pet parents, it really helped that rescue. And how
Right,
wonderful was it that they started as a rescue and then developed, because it is a niche. And I love that you said, and that's a business decision, right? It's what practical pet business is all about. Sometimes the best decisions you make for your business are the ones where you say, I'm not going to do this, even though I'm getting a little bit of feedback that I could, does not mean that I should. And in
right.
this instance, I really, I was internally shaking my head very strongly, going, "Yep, I see exactly what," and it's funny, yeah, that bunny rescue. in particular. And by the way, the other part about that is that's what broke my heart, because they have also gotten into, hamsters and guinea pigs and
Oh,
other small things, because the big box stores, that's where they'd offload them. And it
right.
was just so irresponsible and so frustrating for me. Um, really lost all credibility when I would learn that, yeah, we just got in, 10 more X or Y from, are you kidding me? That really upsets me. So,
Well,
um,
and what an opportunity if you say no to, like in my particular situation, because I was a dog cat store, I didn't do it. But if you wanted to, you have a thing for bunnies, and I don't want to be in the business of bunnies, but
yeah,
I wouldn't mind the bunny rescue coming and doing an event.
yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
could do
Well,
that.
and to your point, it's that whole thing. When someone asks you, they're asking because they trust you, right?
Right.
And so, you know what, like what, and you don't have to know it off the top of your head. It's the same thing. I've had this happen. Was not the greatest with certain animals that we had in our family. And my wife would be out of town. My daughter would say, "Hey, we need something for so and so," and I'd be like, "Okay, where do we normally go to get this?" And the store happened to be closed the one day that this, of course, is happening. And I'm literally calling down to people I trust saying, "Hey, do you carry anything in this space?" Or blah, blah, blah. And that's how we got what we needed in that moment. But what's interesting was I was just as grateful to the two stores that gave me, and I didn't take the first recommendation. I needed someone to secondarily mention the place that I went to, because I didn't know. So I was like, okay, cool. You guys, okay, two people that I trust have given me this. Have that. If you're going to be a dog and cat, a cat only, whatever it is, a bird only, have that round out, because we
Hmm.
are all multi-petual these days. It used to be very heavily bipetual. We are multi-petual these days. And I'm a great example of that. There is just a menagerie of different, pets that we have got to care for. I don't, as a pet parent, not only do I not have the expectation that you as a pet business are going to serve all of that, because I don't think you're probably going to serve it all very well. I want the niche experts. I want to go to the best in class for each one of those beings. They're important enough for me to go to multiple places and make multiple stops. So,
Well, it's the jack of all trades, master of none
yeah,
mentality, and that's never been appealing to me. But there are stores that do that well,
sure.
you know. But overall, should you carry anything live, start small if you decide to, and see how that rolls.
Well, the good news is that they do not have to carry Practical Pet Business live. You can check out our pet podcast on all the different channels these days. If you've got a suggestion for an upcoming episode, please reach out to us, Practical Pet Business. Um, or I'm sorry, please reach out to us at practicalpetchat@gmail.com, or hit us up on any of our Practical Pet Business media channels. We know you've got a lot on your plate. Thank you. You've got a big week ahead of you. We wish you nothing but success in your business. Thank you for serving the pet parents and the pets like you do. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2025 Practical Pet Chat, all rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.